Welcome into another edition of Carps Corner as we continue to give you updates from training camp, everything that's going on with Ohio State, some news and notes around the NFL, some general themes, and what is going on as well in college football. So we've got all that coming for you here and coming to you in a big way. So you're going to be very excited. We're going to start off with some general college football news, something that does apply to Ohio State, and something I think is pretty incredible because it really talks about standards and expectations in football, and standards and expectations in life. And for some people, depending on where you're from and what you've done, having being gainfully employed, having a happy, healthy family, having a decent house, nice home, couple of cars, couple of kids, like that's great. And it's all relative to what your expectations are. And then there's some people saying, hey, I want the best of everything. Some people that are just satisfied. There's some programs in college football that are satisfied with winning a conference title, getting to the college football playoff, heck, getting to the college football championship game. Alabama is not one of those programs. They made it there last year. They lost to Georgia. What did Nick Saban do? Nick Saban took the trophy, the championship participation trophy, and put it right by the lunchroom in Bama, so everybody could walk by it and see it every day as a reminder that that's not the goal. That is not the expectation. Getting there is not the end achievement. And some people are kind of put off by this. I think it's great. Expectations are different for everyone in this world. But if you want to be an alpha, you want to be a dominator, you want to go to a program where regardless of how good you are, they're going to continue to try to squeeze the blood from the rock and get the most they can out of you, then that's a place you want to go, where the expectations are for titles. The expectations are for championships. Getting there is nice, but you don't hang banners for that. You put that as a little notation. Hey, bowl participations. We played in these. That's good. That's great. But it's not a prominent place. There will be programs in the country that if they made it to the national championship game, they display that prominently. Bama's not doing that. And I look back at Ohio State when they played a couple years back and got beat by Bama in the national championship game. I couldn't tell you where that trophy is. I've been through the Woody Hayes a bunch. I could tell you zero about where that trophy is because that's not the expectation. Making the playoff, that's you're meeting standards. Making the championship game, that's great. Winning it, now that's what we hold ceremonies for. That's what we put banners up in rafters for. That's what you get your team year inside the stadium for. Winning it, not just getting there. And so while in society, we love to give a good participation trophy. We love to sit here and say, man, you guys really tried hard. And despite not achieving something, you worked hard. You did a lot. And you didn't get the ultimate goal, but you're further than what you were. And that's great. You know what that used to be? You go get ice cream after the game. And I'm not crapping on teams that don't get it done. Because a lot of my teammates who I played with later in my career at Ohio State, who weren't fortunate enough to be on that team in 2002 when I was a freshman, like we were on good teams. We won conference titles. Some of the teams after me got to the national championship, the BCS championship game then, but you didn't win it. Winning it is what matters because everybody else forgets about it. It slowly fades away into oblivion. And so I'm glad that when I heard that story about Nick Saban, I began to think, where's Ohio State's trophy? It's not in the national championship trophy area. And come to think of it, I've never seen it. And I think that that's a good thing if you're a Buckeye fan. I think that's a great thing, actually, if you're a Buckeye fan. Now, before we get into some of the training camp stuff, I want to talk about safeties a lot today. Talk about the OSU night games and the future of those. Notre Dame this year is going to be at night. I think Toledo has already been announced at night. That's a Big Ten game, Big Ten network game. I'm not a fan of the Toledo night game. I'm not a fan of the Rutgers night game. Those games are noon games, and they should be treated accordingly. But with the new lineup, with Fox having the big noon, CBS having the 3:30 window, and then NBC having the night window, and I think that's how the tiers are going to be ordered. I don't know if Ohio State, they're going to get many more night games. Fox is generally going to have the number one selection. each in so many weeks, and then it will go to CBS, and then lastly, it'll be NBC. And that's disappointing because I'm trying to figure out here how Ohio State is supposed to get night games. They're great for the environment. They're great for the players. They're great for recruiting. I don't need to see 30 night games a year. I don't need to see 6 night games a year. I need to see 1 or 2 at Ohio Stadium. You don't have 1 on the road. That's great. You have 2 or 3 a year. That's perfect. And the games need to act accordingly. They need to be big games. You can't just throw 2 teams up there and say, hey, it's a night game and it's going to be big just because of when it's played. No, that's not how it works. Michigan, Ohio State, the game, it's huge, and it's a noon game, and it should always be a noon game. Maybe you flex it to a 3:30. I won't hate it, but it doesn't need to be a night game. But you need to make sure the big non-conference games, the Penn State's at home, maybe a Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, whoever the heck is good, big non-conference, those need to be night. And I'm worried with how this TV slate lines up that with NBC getting the 3rd tier, I don't know if you're going to have any of those big night games as a Buckeye fan, and that should concern you if you're a fan of Ohio State. If you're a fan of the Big Ten, because you want to see your big-time games up at night in prime time, it's easier to get the recruits there. It's a better environment. It's a great experience, and we need to see it happen. And I'm a little worried that that might be sliding away. And just to show you how great those night experiences can be, I'll throw this up here. StubHub threw up the average aftermarket, secondary market of the resale ticket prices for some of the top programs across the country. Now, Ohio State, they've got Michigan at home. It's the end of the season. Michigan could be a 1-loss team, maybe undefeated when it comes to that point. They obviously open with Notre Dame. That's going to be driving a lot of this at night. I believe they have Iowa at home, Wisconsin at home. Like, they've got 4 really good games that are going to be in the horseshoe. And so Ohio State leads the way on StubHub with ticket resale value of $412. Listen, Arkansas State's pulling it down a little afterwards. You got Toledo that's going to pull it down. Everybody's going to have those games. But Ohio State's sitting there at $412. Bama's sitting there at $312. Texas A&M sitting there at $337. Or Texas sitting at $337. You've got Georgia sitting there at $382. Texas A&M at $216. I mean, but this is where it is. This is why it's great, because Ohio State has that night game. The night game is helping lead that leading aftermarket ticket revenue, that ticket dollar number that you're going to pay to get in there, because you're paying to see a great team at a great time in a great environment. 2 great teams coming in. Top 5 matchup, number 2 versus 5. And so that's the power of Ohio State. That is the power of Buckeye Nation. That is what people love to see. And they want to see these night games, and they're willing to pay a lot. But it's the usual suspects that are at the top. Texas, Georgia, A&M, Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, Auburn, LSU, all the teams that you think are very coveted and are desirable to see in stadium because of the stadium experience, the quality of the team, and the passion of the fan base, and the opposition that will be coming in. That makes a lot of sense. Penn State, probably going to be a whiteout. Ohio State's going to be there for it right on Halloween weekend. That's how it almost always is, and it's a great game, and it's a phenomenal experience. That's driving Penn State. So you got a lot there within the Big Ten. So secondary market ticket prices are huge for Ohio State, and that should be expected. I'm going to dive in now to the safeties for Ohio State. Take a little look at this. And so Ohio State with this 4-2-5, it's kind of a 3 safety-ish hybrid defense. You've got, Ronnie Hickman, Rock Hickman, one of the safeties, Josh Proctor, another, Tanner McAllister, kind of a safety. They call one of them the bullet, but they kind of oscillate these guys back and forth as they move them. And then when they go to like a pure nickel, they can also bring in a corner and do some other interesting things. Ronnie Hickman, returning starter, played really well last year. Big hitter. Plays with some passion, good tackler. Angles needed to get touched up a little bit last year, was pretty good in coverage, but looking good in training camp so far. Another guy, just like Tommy Eichenberg, a year of starting made a world of difference. Huge for him. I think you're seeing a more confident player, seeing a guy that has better recognition, understands the coverage principles more, really pretty good in zone, does a good job in man, and is going to be a good run fitter. The next guy we want to talk about, Josh Proctor, number 41. So him and Hickman are 14 and 41. You get a little dyslexic when you're looking at them. When you look at these safeties, Josh Proctor, he could be the difference maker for this Ohio State defense. Anytime you can have an eraser in the middle of the field, and I know I've talked about him before, that can go, numbers to numbers back there, but also can come up and be a physical run player because Josh Proctor loves contact. You go back and look at some of his hits over the years. My goodness, one of the ones in the Big Ten championship game at the end of the game, poor guy, I think he might have just now woke up. I believe that was against Northwestern, flies across and wham, smokes him. Really, really good free safety. And he's got the length and he's got the speed and he looks like he's understanding the game. And even though he didn't play last year, just a year of maturation, stepping back, I don't think he probably thought when he came to Ohio State, he'd be here 4 years. But it's amazing how injuries in your journey take you to where you need to be. And I think this is probably the best thing to happen to Joshua Proctor because I've watched Josh grow up and become one heck of a dude, a leader. And you can see that now on the field when they get in and work on the short yardage run and you start bringing in your safeties to help and everybody's eating up and he's the free hitter. Boom. He does an awesome job at filling in there now. And then you bring in Tanner McAllister, a guy who I probably know the least about, probably need to talk to a little bit. But he's the veteran of this system. He was with Jim Knowles at Oklahoma State, and you can tell that he understands it as well as anybody. And you can move him around probably to all 5 DB spots. And he's been a guy that's been a coach on the field, good player, all-conference player in the Big 12. But you can see his understanding early in the spring and as guys have begun to catch up to him and how he's been able to help and assist. But he's knowledgeable. He's confident. He's a good tackler, good in coverage. And he knows the system inside and out. And I think that really helped Jim Knowles communicate this, especially on the back end. Now, I want to talk about a couple other guys who are kind of working in here as well. Court Williams, who I think a lot of people really like, big physical dude. Almost would probably better be suited to slide into linebacker at some point in the future just because of his natural ability to retain muscle and just be a big guy. Good, really good tackler. Great in run coverage. Pretty good in zone, can struggle a little bit in man on smaller, quicker wideouts just because he's so big. And so that's a little bit of his deficiency right there, but he's going to find his way onto the field in packages. Smart as a whip. He's always in the Woody Hayes, working and studying. He's overcome so many injuries, and you can see him when he gets down there. He understands what's going on. He does a good job learning. He's a pretty confident guy, and physically he checks all the boxes. Getting off the bus, he's one of the guys you want to have leading you out there because he's about 6'1.5", 6'2", and looks like he's about 2 1/4. And big physical dude. And that's why he's really good in short yardage run stuff. And he'll be good on coverage and tight ends. And hopefully they'll be able to be a fit and a place to get him out there because of everything that he's able to provide and what he's able to do on the field. And then one of the other guys that's looking really good and a very versatile player. And I think he could play a little bit of that true nickel. And that's Cam Martinez. I do Jeremy Birmingham at the podcast, loves him. He's a small school kid from Michigan, but he gets up here and him and Lathan Ransom, dude, they look good. Lathan's a little bit bigger, but both those guys move really well. And Cam Martinez is very special when he's able to move around. Had a nice interception at practice the other day, looked very, very good in coverage. And you can see the light clicking. And, from him changing positions once he got here, being in it now a couple of years, and it's been a big piece because Jim Knowles does a lot of stuff on the back end. And if you watch this year as they face teams that'll motion, you'll see these safeties spinning back and forth. You'll see them, corners coming up and back. There'll be a lot of communication, a lot of discussion. And, you've got your top 3 guys most likely right now with Hickman, Proctor, and McAllister, but you're going to have to play Lathan Ransom. You're going to get Court Williams out there. Cam Martinez is going to have a role. Kai Stokes, who's a freshman, who I think a lot of people really like. There's a chance for him to see himself and find his way onto the field in a big way. So that's something else that you could also see. And then there's, true freshman who just got here, Sonny Styles, who I like a lot as well. He's done some really good things. He's a tall guy. He's a big dude. He's but you can see the uncertainty and just the physical development and the maturation that's going to happen for him over the next couple of years. He checks a lot of the boxes, big time 5-star recruit, super athletic, but, not coming in the spring, coming through the summer, there's just a little bit of understanding of what's going on, which is completely natural for college football. But I'm a huge fan of Sonny Styles. So I've got a chance to watch him over the last 4 years develop at Pickerington Central when he's playing against my dad's team at Lancaster. And man, I saw him as a freshman. I thought he was about a junior or a senior, and he just really looks the part, has all the physical gifts. And as he continues to sit in this system, which is very complicated, he's going to begin to understand it and continue to come around as well and do it in a big way. So really, really excited for this young group of guys that are kind of sitting there behind. Some of them been in the program a little bit longer. This is all their first year in the system outside of Tanner McAllister. And so when you see them, they're going to play some cover two deep safeties. They're going to play some single high cover 3 zone. They're going to play some man rolling down back and forth. They're going to bring pressure. These safeties, they've got to have a high degree of communication with the linebackers. And so that's where the Steel Chambers, the Tommy Eichenbergs, being able to talk to those guys and understand who has whom, and the comboing of coverages when you see guys get really close together, maybe a tight end and a running back, and they cluster up, and you see guys talking like, hey, how are we going to play this? Are we going to lock it where we both have our guys? Do we play it as they come, or whoever runs the hoop first, you got outside, I've got inside? Those are the things that they're going to have to do and do at a very high level. So really, really excited to kind of see how those guys continue to develop here through training camp, because they've looked really good so far, and their tackling and their aggression has been right where you want it to be as a safety. And coverage-wise, less than 7-on-7 against these guys at Ohio State. The Jackson Smith and Jigbas, the Mecca Ibukas, the Julian Flemings, the Ballards. I mean, no, I'm probably leaving out some, leaving out guys here, but they're really stinking good, and it's really hard to stop. So they're getting a full look as you look at all of these wide receivers, including Marvin Harrison Jr., who I left off, and you're going to see how good these guys are, but it's been great work for him so far. All right. And now a couple quick NFL notes here. One regarding Justin Fields, former Ohio State quarterback, current Chicago Bears quarterback, and then one involving former Ohio State turned Bama receiver Jameson Williams, who was drafted in the first round by the Detroit Lions. We'll start with Justin Fields. And so Justin Fields is in a situation in Chicago where they've basically traded away everything they have. They have a ton of cap space coming forward. They don't have a ton of draft picks. Their best receiver from last season is now playing for the Rams. Their defense isn't very good. Roquan Smith wants a trade, their best linebacker. Like, they don't have really anything left. Robert Quinn's still there. Khalil Mack is out. Like, they don't have a whole lot left. And Justin Fields is there in his second season under his second head coach, second offensive coordinator, second general manager. And they have no weapons. They have nothing for him. And he stays positive, and he's been working it and doing things the right way. But I just feel for the guy. I feel for him because so much of the NFL is timing and situation and circumstance. And if you're in a bad spot with bad players around you and you get coaches spinning through, it's a really bad place to be, especially for a quarterback. Because I think Justin Fields has ability. I think he's a smart guy. He has athleticism. He gets it. He understands the game. And so he said earlier this week when they were talking about, going from Ohio State to the Chicago Bears, and asked him with regard to the players he's throwing with, he was throwing to Jameson Williams. He was throwing to Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was throwing to Chris Olave. He was throwing to Garrett Wilson. He was throwing to Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison Jr. And they asked him about it, and he said, I'm throwing to guys who wouldn't have made 6th string at Ohio State. That's the biggest adjustment. It's true. He's speaking the truth. The Chicago Bears have limited weapons around Justin Fields. He's in a bad spot. It's going to be tough for him to have success. I hope he shows enough this year The next season, they can either get some weapons or he can force his way out or do something else because they traded a lot to get him and then he wasn't ready. And then they fired everybody and Andy Dalton couldn't get it done. And it was just a bad situation. It was a bad situation from the jump. And it was something that he was going to have a hard time succeeding in. The Browns, they call them the graveyard of quarterbacks. I mean, Jay Cutler is by far the best quarterback the Chicago Bears have had since the mid 80s, since before then. And he could be that guy for him. Justin Fields could be that guy, I believe. They don't give him any help. He needs help. Justin Fields needs help in Chicago. And I understand why he's saying the biggest adjustment is the fact that I'm throwing to receivers who wouldn't have been in the top 6 for me at Ohio State, because that is the truth about the Chicago Bears roster right now. Justin Smith has limited help on the outside with the skill positions. He has limited help in the backfield, and he has limited protection up front. And their defense, which used to be so great, has now been decimated and shredded and sold off for parts. So Justin Fields, I can understand why he's fired up. He knows what it takes after playing games last year in the NFL to be good, and they don't have it. They don't have what it takes, and it's going to be a tough row for him to hoe. And then lastly, we'll finish with this. Jameson Williams, won a single digit in Detroit. Now, I'm not big on retiring numbers unless you are generationally great, but I think you retire jerseys. And you can hold numbers for a while and make sure that the right guy has it and that someone you think is going to be worthy of it should possess it. And so Jameson Williams won a single digit in Detroit. The only one that was available was number 9. Well, that's the guy who played number 9 with me, Matthew Stafford, the guy who just won the Super Bowl for the Rams. No one was wearing 9 last year for the Lions. And so they gave it to Jameson Williams, wanted it. He got it. Before he went and got it. And this is why I respect Jameson Williams right here. And maybe this was advised by the Detroit front office. I'm not sure. But before Jameson Williams took the number 9 from Matthew Stafford, what he used to wear, he gave him a call, probably shot him a text. Hey, big fella, I'd like to wear a single digit. 9's the only one that's available. Matthew, do you care if I wear your number? I'd be honored to wear your number. Matt Stafford's a great dude. Matthew Stafford is one of the best dudes you're going to find. Jameson, all good, bro. You got it. Do it proud. That's Matthew Stafford in the class that he is. And I'm very proud to see Jameson Williams respect veterans in the league, because that's the thing with rookies. It's all about veteran respect. You give it, you get it if you can play. I think Jameson Williams can play. I'm glad that he reached out to Matthew Stafford before just taking his jersey. Well, that's it for this edition of Carps Corner. Thank you for tuning in again. We're going to keep giving you some training camp updates, a lot of Buckeye news, a lot of college football news, everything there. Like, subscribe, comment, share with friends. I really appreciate all the support and look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.